Hello everyone and welcome to the Sick of Silence podcast. Today we hope to take you on an enlightening exploration of the fashion industry. I'm your host, Michaela Welch, and together we'll delve into the crucial issues that continue to exist within the fashion world and unpack ways we can incite much needed change. So everybody, welcome to Sick of Silence. A round of applause. We've been planning this since January.
And it has not occurred until April, now.
And it's occurred. Now, today's episode is on diversity and inclusion in the fashion industry. Mm-hmm. Now, you're both black, so a lot of these answers are going to be from our experiences as children growing up. I think more so it's going to be, for me, it's going to be like seeing magazines and adverts when growing up, how it's affected me.
Fair enough.
Because nowadays it's more to do with social media and like stuff like that.
And less television.
And less television and less magazines. But let's jump right into it. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Michaela Welch. I'm a fashion student. My one advice for everyone is to live your life, because the only thing guaranteed is death. That's what I tell myself.
Oh my goodness, Michaela.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, hi. My name's Mai Welch and I am, unfortunately, a mathematics student and a hopeful film and TV producer. So
We're sisters, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, we are sisters.
Okay, first question, because got to do this. In a general sense, do you believe that the fashion industry has become more diverse? From your point of view as a consumer. Yeah.
I mean, I guess it has become more diverse. I mean, really and truly, it was kind of diverse in the 90s, you know? There was like a lot of like very like, i.e. Naomi Campbell. You had like a lot of like black and like Asian and like models in the 80s and 90s. And then like what happened was, I guess designers wanted a blank slate.
So that's what you feel, your personal opinion?
No, it's an actual thing.
It's an actual thing, okay.
It's an actual thing. And then they stopped casting a lot of like...
basically new faces. Because what I was going to say is, you've got your key faces like Naomi.
Yeah.
But like, because they had their key faces, they didn't branch out. So.
They didn't... Obviously, there was always a lack of like people of colour in the industry, but you had the key people on the runway like around the 70s, 80s, 90s. And then I think it is in the 90s when they stopped casting new people, like,
and they stuck to the faces they see.
Yeah, because they wanted a very like blank canvas. So basically, it was just like, I get what you mean. Tall white people.
I was gonna say that, and from your point of view, most of the time when we're talking about diversity and inclusion in the fashion industry, what consumers can see are the models, practically, and that's it.
But it's all about behind the scenes as well.
Behind the scenes is not
like the design.
The designers. The models are nowadays. Everywhere you go, pretty much when you're looking at advert,
most of it is just guys.
Just guys.
Not just guys, but I mean like back in the day.
It's pretty diverse.
It's pretty diverse, but back in the day, it used to be like just like the big fashion houses. Most of it, at least, was run by men.
Yeah, and
when you think about the fashion houses,
it's still the same now.
Exactly.
Let me go into that now. So here are some statistics that I've brought, because we come with facts only.
And figures, yes.
A report from the British Fashion Council published in June 2022 found that less than 5% of most senior roles in fashion companies are held by people from an ethnic minority background. The Office for National Statistics data shows that women made up 50% of the UK population in 2021, but as of the 8th of February, I'm assuming that year, when the research was conducted, an average of 32% of business roles were held by women, a decline of 1% point on last year's 33%. Do these numbers shock you, or is it what you expected? This is from like behind the scenes in the fashion.
Just like there was.
These are jobs. So like buyers, designers, merchandisers, and then going up, you've got obviously directors.
Well, this is my thing.
So it doesn't shock you.
It doesn't. Yeah, of course. This is my thing. I feel like people think, fashion, it's a women's game. No, it's the white guys who are typically, let's not even cap, most of them are gay, kind of gay.
What, in the fashion industry?
Yeah.
Okay.
But but at least back in the day, you had but like maybe even now, a lot of like guys in general have now. Basically, this is what it is. You know how like, I don't know how to explain it.
I feel like it's in with the fashion industry, most consumers are women because the shop floor is like 60% women. So when men show interest in being in the industry in terms of those roles, not necessarily designers, because I feel like designers, it's a bit equal-ish. Don't quote me on that, but I feel like when they come in, because they're a guy and there's so many women
it's
involved,
easier for them
to get up
to
because
move
they
up the
stand out
ladder.
more because
They do.
You're more.
But then I feel like it's always
been.
been I don't feel like women. I feel like it's never been equal.
Of course.
It's never been equal.
Patriarchy. It will never
if
be
you think of business roles have always been men. It was always men who had like the money in the beginning to invest into these fashion companies. He owns basically all these fashion companies, LMVH, and he's run by my guy with all of the money with all the companies. He's the guy who runs it. You maybe like someone like us would have expected like it was a woman who would have all this fashion taste, especially because most of the stuff is marketed towards women.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's men. And if you think about business roles, we think of like legal, you think marketing, you think accountancy, all those roles, regardless of the fact that it's fashion towards, it's going to always be male dominated. Yeah. It's only in the sense I feel as though the only part of the fashion industry which is female dominated and female driven is obviously the models, because modeling is one of the only careers in the world in which, other than sex work, in which women make more than men.
Fair enough. That's true. When I was researching, most of the articles literally, as I start, like you start the first sentence after 2020 and George Floyd's death, literally in all of them, they've started to now think about diversity and inclusion and put a huge priority on it. Most of the time they use the phrase wake up call. And I found this so interesting because what it really was saying is that before George Floyd's death, no one really cared. Now people always like, it's the 21st century, things are getting better. But that was 3 years ago. His death is literally the reason why half of these programs now exist. And that was only 3 years ago. So honestly, they didn't care then. The only reason I believe they care now is because of more scrutiny, because of social media. People, they'll speak up about it. When you do campaigns, they'll be like, why is it not diverse enough? And I honestly, not that they don't care, but I think that it's hard for them to care because they're not in that position. Let's say if the whole of the board of directors are white men, why are they going to care that a female Asian woman is not represented?
I think it's just in general in creative industries, especially because like you to produce a product of high quality, you need to invest a whole lot of money. So a lot of the things we don't realize is all calculated behind the scenes. They all like think to themselves, how much money.
It's capitalism. So how much
basically
money can I make?
How much money can I make from this project, right?
How much money can I take from these people?
Exactly.
That's
so
just it.
I think a lot of people who don't have a lot of people who are on these boards who aren't as diverse as they can be sit there thinking, well, I wouldn't buy this, I don't know, this kente cloth on this model. Why would the next person buy it? They don't think culture, or at least cultural differences, are marketable.
Well, you know why that's so interesting? Because recently PLT did their Eid collection, and it was obviously scrutinized because it was not Eid friendly. It wasn't.
That's just a marketing ploy. That was a marketing.
You think it's a marketing? I think it just shows that because PLT don't need that kind of marketing. They need good.
No, I mean in the marketing ploy in the sense that they put that collection out because they're running out of things to do.
No. But what I mean is, it just shows that if someone on the team was,
I just feel like
Muslim, for example, or even just Asian, even me, I could.
You never know.
You never know. This is not gonna be good.
I think maybe they had it in. I just think they just had like, Eid's coming up. Everyone's doing something for Eid. Tesco did that Eid advert.
The thing is, it's not that they did it. It's the thing they didn't do it properly. When you bring a product, you have to do customer research before. Of course. Which is what I'm going to say. Do you think these schemes are actually genuine? Because if they were genuine, I feel like, especially with PLT, you're big fashion, like fast fashion.
It doesn't take a genius to like do an really truly.
It doesn't think about
here in the UK. I find it hard to believe that people in the UK, right? I think the people who started Eid, they're from Manchester, aren't they? It's Manchester based. I swear on my life.
What, PLT?
PLT is Manchester based. You're telling me that none of these people in Manchester have met
this is what I'm saying.
A woman who's of the faith of Islam. No, they have. So it's not even a sense of research. It's a sense of common sense. But they had no goody, right? So they just wanted to make money. That's basically what it was.
This is what I'm saying. if these initiatives are in place, most of it is focused on from what I've read, is focused on ethnic diversity. There's others for women, for example,
and LGBT.
Also, what's interesting, I saw that LGBTQ plus in the industry is not much of an issue.
Of course not.
You know, it's the fashion industry. That's what I was gonna say. That's not much of an issue. Most actually, like, senior roles, it was saying like there's like there will be a person like who's out, for example.
Of course. I find it very hard to believe.
Yeah, but that's not an issue. That's not gonna say. That's not an issue. So if you want to join the fashion industry, you're safe
then
here.
You're fine.
But the other ones are
industry.
No, the other ones is working class background and people with disabilities.
Well, we all know why working class backgrounds it's hard for the whole thing with the so.
No, what I was going to say, let's not get off track, but I was going to say, do you think the fashion industry can change enough for these initiatives to be a success?
No.
Considering the industry is still considered exclusive and about who you know?
No.
Okay, why?
Because in industries like this, you need money. To actually, if you really think about how, like, to become a really successful, like, person in, like, even not even fashion, just the creative industries in general, right? You have to, let's say you live in a rural part of like the UK, you have to go, and you might want to work in a fashion house. Where all the fashion houses based? They're based in big cities.
So most Manchester and
Birmingham and London. Yeah. So you gotta, let's just say you come to London. How are you meant to afford to stay in London long enough for you to actually build the connections to actually progress in your career? Let's just say you go to school in London. I feel as though like school is one way of networking, but it's not always the best way of networking if you don't have the money to actually go to some of these like fancy like institutions, right? So let's just say you do actually end up in London and networks your way into it. Most of it is who you know. It's so hard to find jobs in. This is the problem with the creative industry. It's so hard to find regular jobs.
It can't change ever.
It's not that it can't change. I just find it.
You put a time frame on it.
20 years.
Because these initiatives are in place.
Not even 20 years. 30.
Okay, so Maya's saying 30 years for the industry to change, to become more diverse ethnically, to become more socially diverse, and
I think it will be harder for it to become socially advanced.
Ethnically.
The thing is, right, I feel like it will be harder for it to be socially advanced, and in turn, that will affect the ethnic diversity. Yeah. Because really and truly, most people of colour, not everyone who's a person of colour comes from a working class background, but you can see the proportion of the proportionality is different. That's the reason why it has stayed so white for the last couple of years, or at least forever.
I think that's interesting because Vogue, did you see?
Yeah.
Vogue has just done their casting call
for models.
I didn't see it because I don't want to be a model, but you saw it.
I saw it.
What did it say? Did they just want someone fun?
They
tall?
said,
is tall still a requirement?
They said they want a femme presenting person over the age of 18 who, I don't think height is a problem. I think it's just any height, any weight, any like measurements. They want you to send in your pictures. They want you to do a runway model, but post it on
Instagram, TikTok
or some like type of thing, and then
I think this is interesting because
then tag
Vogue
them.
Sets the precedent, I think, for a lot of things in the fashion industry. So if Vogue becomes more diverse, I think
more in turn the fashion community more diverse.
I think it with modeling it's easy, you know.
Yeah, but I feel like modeling's not a problem
because you know doing the research, it was saying that a lot of these companies still do, for example, culture hires. So they'll hire who they want, and they'll say, okay,
we don't have any black people.
We need one black person, or we need one Asian person, and then that's it. And so they literally had to write in this article, which is the business. What is it again? The British Fashion Council. It's literally on the internet. You can literally go and read it. They literally said, you have to stop doing culture hires and hire for talent instead, which shows that people are not hiring for talent. And this is what people always say, oh, we're losing, you know, when people complain, oh, we're losing jobs. Like, these people are like, you're on your culture hire.
Bro, I had this conversation.
For talent.
I had this conversation with one of my friends.
Then the room will look diverse because people coming in will have these skills. At the end of the day, if you're hiring for who you know and you don't know a lot of, let's say your social group is not diverse, then the room that you invite people to is going to be
basically white,
and then basically me, the odd female here.
I mean,
the woman.
I talked about this with my friend, like. He was talking about, I always say something to him about how, like, as a black woman in just society in general, it will be harder than him, a white male, to get a job. He looked at me straight in the eyes and was like, but you'll be a diversity hire. like they want to hire.
And they say it like it's a flex, but a diversity
you
hire.
want to hire. They want to hire more people
but
that look like us.
Let's do
But
the math.
once they get one of us through the door, that's the problem. Will they let other people come in behind us?
Let's say you're in a group. There's 20 of you, and they're hiring 5 people, and let's say 15 are white, 5 are black. Just for
most of those people will be 4
of them are gonna be white,
and one will be black.
3 males.
3
white males, 1 white female.
And then the black guy and the black girl are going to be fine for that.
They're going to be fine. And how is that fair? But
it's not fair.
Were hiring, I think obviously there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of what ifs, and there's a lot of context. But
and some companies do strive to actually
I think a lot of them
increase their like diversity and inclusion, but a lot of companies are in this mindset of, oh well, we've already got like someone who is like of this. It's like they're collecting Pokemons. They say we've already got a black woman. Oh, she's both black and a woman. We don't really need another woman in the room. Oh, we've got like someone who has a disability or someone who's gay.
This is not related to LGBT. No, not LGBT plus. This is not related to this conversation at all. But watch Blackish and Dre, who's the main character, when he goes to work and the way they talk and the way the environment is just really shows how it's like male dominated. White male dominated, then you've got the black guy, and then maybe 2 black guys, and then one white woman.
Yeah.
And then one black woman maybe in the show. And it just watch Blackish if you don't get what I mean. I feel like it shows it good. But what I was gonna say is I worked at The Sun as a fashion assistant, and I enjoyed it there. I loved it there. I think I worked with the fashion stylists. They were so nice. Some people who did their work experience hated the teams they were on. I loved The Sun. But what I noticed being on the level, because The Sun is all like in the same place, is that when I looked around, as a person of colour, you look around and you look for how many black people, and I do Asian people as well, how many black and Asian people
we have this game where it's like spot the ethnic person.
Spot the ethnic person. We do it all the time. But so I did it here, and literally on the level, there was max 4 black people. And this is a big
company.
Big level. This is, you have to really,
you know what?
It's in a circle, you have to walk around. And I'm thinking, like, you walk, everyone's literally white. And then, oh, there we go. There's the black person. Like, it's like,
No, you know what it is, yeah? I think it's going to be harder for bigger corporations to diversify in comparison to small, like, independent companies. For example, I went to work experience in Bristol, like, in April at, like, this production company. And all of the older people, the people in the senior roles are all people who are white. But then again, it was like there was only like one guy in one of the senior roles who was a guy. All the rest were women, so it's quite inclusive in that way. Then again, the head of the people who were running the company was 2 women. Now it's just 1 woman. But in terms of like the younger people, like the apprentices, like the people who like more of the junior staff, there wasn't a lot of us, but
it was quite
diverse. Like there was like a mixture between
there can
the 2.
be success. You're saying 30 years, but in
the context of
that is a small company.
Of small companies, it'll be easier because I feel as though a lot of them run apprentice schemes, a lot of them run internships.
It might be easier to contact them.
Exactly. And like it's more not like if you reach out to them and you have a really good a good rapport with them, they will like try and bring you on afterwards. I feel like with big companies, it's more of like, oh, like if you know someone at the BBC, they'll bring you on. But most likely
they won't because it's so big.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's so hard that way, I feel as though. Like big companies, it'll be harder for you to diversify in comparison to small companies, especially because small companies have less bureaucracy. It's more like a mum and pop shop. Everyone knows each other. You could see especially if it's like a small building, you can see around you and see how many people there are of colour and how many people are women.
I could still do that in The Sun.
Yeah, but I feel like it's just different. It's a different vibe.
It's a different vibe. Like, it was very, like, office place, and I was just like, damn. But I think everyone was really nice there. I was kind of I was a bit scared to go. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of a little frightened. But everyone was so nice, and the stylist was so nice. But obviously, I was a bit scared because anxiety or whatever. But we're gonna do a little pivot because in my research, I did research in a book, and it was a good book. It was about fashion and just, like, being culturally diverse, being socially, like, social stuff. Nothing about sustainability, though. But this person,
Show me.
I was meant to practice these before I came. At the top 9.
Oh, Nadavine.
Yeah, okay.
Peter Riss.
Yeah.
I'm the worst at names as well.
This person suggests that globalization results in cultural hybridization or mixing of different cultures and people to create new cultures. In my opinion, this then leads to cultural authentication, which this person talks about in the book. This occurs,
what is cultural authentication?
Yes, this occurs when two cultures come into contact and one culture incorporates aspects or artifacts from another culture into its own culture. So basically you're sharing the culture and you develop it into your own. So now, this is what I think people mean when they're trying to talk about cultural appropriation. This is what they're trying to talk about. No, let me get there. They're trying to talk about cultural authentication.
Can I see what? I don't understand what authentication means.
Basically, it just means, you know when people are like, oh, like, if there's a culture, why can't I learn about this culture?
Oh, you mean someone who just like comes in, like America?
So they're saying two cultures coming together. So when so like the Caribbeans came here and we brought our culture. So
basically London culture.
So London culture is basically Caribbean, African culture all mixed together. So that's what they're talking about. That's
all cultural. Asian culture in there as well.
Yeah, and Asian culture. This is what cultural authentication is. Now, when we're talking...
Oh, so like the bloody chicken tikka masala. How that's not actually a dish in India. That's an actual British-born bit.
This is what they're talking about. Now, in terms of the fashion industry, obviously, that is going to happen because we've got... You're getting inspiration from places. However, we've now got cultural appropriation. Now, the definition, for people who don't know, is cultural appropriation is the use of another's culture's artifact in an inappropriate or inaccurate way by a dominant culture over a minority culture. This is what happens because obviously we live in an unbalanced world. Mm-hmm. You know, things are tough. There's racism, there's the patriarchy, you know, people are struggling, there's ableism, there's all these kind of things. Mm-hmm. I always say, can the fashion industry become like not do cultural appropriation?
No.
And I think without diversity and inclusion, no. But people always this is why I'm bringing these definitions. People always try to say, but you're going to get inspiration from other cultures. We're going to mix. Things are going to happen.
Well,
what they're talking about is cultural authentication. Okay, I think this is what they're talking about.
I feel like you can't reach cultural authentication until you accept, other people into... You can't have cultural authentication in the industry which doesn't have like at least equal to the population at least amounts of diversity, or at least more.
The thing is, this actually authentication has happened. We've seen it with our own eyes because it also means cultural authentication is undertaken by one culture to provide new meaning to another culture's artifact and integrate it with their identity. So basically, this has happened. I'm trying to think of... So, for example, streetwear. When I did my magazine last year, streetwear, that kind of thing, this originated with, in New York. If you want to trace origin, in New York with Caribbean descendants and African Americans.
But I feel as though...
And now everyone is wearing streetwear. So,
I feel...
It happens.
It happens, but, I feel as though, now... The way it's... I feel like if we're going to start, doing, the whole culture... We're going to start labeling stuff as cultural authentication. I feel as though you can't do that without having enough people in the industry that looks like us or looks like an Asian person.
This is why it all stems back to diversity and inclusion.
Because it feels as though you're just taking things that quote unquote belong to us, things that you didn't even enjoy in the first place, things that you said you looked down your nose upon and just using it for your capitalistic gain. Which they're basically going to do anyway. But it would be nice if we're there to reap the profits as well. Not that I'm a capitalist person.
I think this is interesting because I saw on TikTok, I hate saying that I saw on TikTok, but honestly, everything we know now is from watching TikTok. But it was Chinese Americans talking about essentially cultural appropriation and how in China, let's say you've never lived outside China in your life, they apparently, from this video that I remember, they like it when they see other people wearing their stuff. They feel, I guess, proud. But Chinese Americans who have lived through the bullying of being Chinese, who are discriminated,
don't appreciate it,
who are not appreciated, who, obviously they live under discrimination in America. Now seeing their culture being
used on runways,
used by other people, and they're just like, well, no, I was made fun of as a kid, and now you're telling me it's on the runway and people are now applauding it. They feel, well, I can say from experience, you feel a bit cheated. You feel upset. It's not a good feeling because it's like, okay, so all that suffering I went through, it doesn't mean anything because now this designer has said, okay,
this is fashionable.
This is fashionable. Well, maybe when I was a kid, it wasn't fashionable and I was getting bullied. As I was saying, Maya, do you think we can... How long do you think it's going to take? Obviously, we're saying 50 years before we can...
I feel like you need to have enough people in the industry and have enough people a prolonged period of time in which they're in the industry for it to start being okay.
We're getting more diverse now. But we've got to work our way up.
I feel like, as also, along with the fact that the industry has to be also become diverse, I feel like society also has to become more accepting of
different cultures,
diversity and inclusion. I feel
all around.
Once you become, because really and truly, even to this day, you have some people who be like, we need diversity and inclusion. Just pull yourself up from your bootstraps and do it like that. You have people who don't really believe in necessarily putting diversity and inclusion first.
As you said before, they think of it straight away as even this
that you're dismantling them.
It's a culture hire, so you're taking away from someone else. But no, if diversity and inclusion was not even prioritized, if you were just based off your talent and not who you know, because then the room would just be naturally become more diverse.
It's just
itself.
I think the reason why the creative industries are in general less diverse is because it's harder to break into than other things. If you wanted to be a doctor, you just go to school. They basically pick all your subjects for you. You do all the exams. You basically get placed into a hospital, and that's you set. Diversity inclusion isn't necessarily
a priority because...
And not in terms a priority. It's more of a sense, it's not an issue in terms of getting the job. It's more of a sense moving up in the job,
true.
There's an issue. But getting into university, that's the issue.
It's easy to enter.
It's easier to enter than the creative industry. In the creative industry, you need to know, I don't know, someone who works on set, someone who has a company.
I wouldn't have got my position at The Sun as a fashion assistant, even though I think they needed a fashion assistant. What we were doing, it was weeks old work because they didn't have anyone. But I got in the door because I went to fashion school. But if you just decide one day you want to do fashion, and
it'll be very hard. There's no
strict process.
You know how they don't tell you in school this is what you need to do. If I wouldn't have got my work experience my dad didn't know.
Nepotism.
It was basically nepotism. If my dad didn't know someone whose wife was a head of a production company. These things are I feel networking is one thing that they don't tell you in school is most careers at least is who you know. It's not what you know.
Yeah, because you
can always learn on the job.
You always learn on the job because if you come in as an intern or as an assistant, you're not gonna know the job because you've never done the job. Even at the new job we started doing tickets for the O2.
Exactly.
We knew what we needed to do, but they put us there and I was forgetting everything. Exactly. But once I done it, I was fine. I think, I don't know, with the fashion, it's
just don't be scared to... I feel it's more of a sense you have to be more...
I think fashion is getting there. I think behind the scenes is getting there. I just think there isn't enough conversation because literally everything goes back to George Floyd. Rest in peace. The guy's been dead for 3 years.
Exactly.
You can't start your article with anything else.
Exactly.
Is it going to be 5 years and it's going to be 6
in the wake of
George
Floyd. You could even go back and say in the wake of slavery, in the wake of segregation, in the wake of Enoch Powell. It's not in the wake of Suella Braverman.
It's honestly, his impact, to me, it's upsetting. You know what? His death was significant.
It was.
So wherever he is now in the afterlife.
But I feel as though it shouldn't be just because of him.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
You should want to strive for more inclusion and diversity in a more multicultural workplace that reflects. I don't know, if you live in London, that reflects London or reflects the country, not because of George Floyd. But just in general, you don't want.
It's not. It's as a lot
It feels like they feel guilty and they just wanna.
You know,
it's the white guilt.
It's the wake up. It was a wake up call for them, but for us, it's our lives.
Exactly. We've always been
growing up.
We've always been told that you have to work. You have to work 2 times harder, 4 times harder, 3 times harder. You have to work harder than people because sometimes you won't be seen. You won't be judged by the content of your character, by the color of your skin.
I think obviously we're not saying the whole industry is
Of course.
racist, for example. We're not saying that because
because there are some designers who like, especially the 90s models. Maybe it's because of their personality, or maybe it's because like they like them as a person. There was some designers who like made sure to hire people of color, like at least their favorite models of color. They kept them in work. And solidarity in the industry means that if you were getting hired, if you were on the runway, and they wanted you, you could always advocate for other people to get on there as well, to be hired as well.
I think there will be change. I'm always a hopeful person. I don't like, even with cancelling people, like people are like, so and so said the N word, even though this is a bit of a topic, in like 2016. Yeah, that was quite recent. But let's say in that year's time they've changed. Are we really gonna just? I say this is more for influencers, disregard them because they said this is like so different. The N word. I feel like change will happen.
I mean, let's say like
if
Gucci can come back from their whole racist mishap, then I'm sure like loads of people can come back.
All the fashion houses won't always come back.
They always come back.
Individuals within like
no one is truly cancelled. The idea that someone's
cancel
culture doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, it's an internet thing. But I think in real life, if someone like, let's say some like executives, they didn't know anything, like not they didn't know, but obviously let's say it's white male dominated executive board, and then someone's coming in and said basically we're not doing good enough, 5% of our employees are people of color, 10% are women, there's no initiatives to help people with disabilities, for example, because that is also not very focused on, but it's coming up, but it's not very focused on. We need to do better. And they explained why. Yes, there's a chance they're going to be like, okay, whatever, do it. But there might be a chance that they're genuinely involved. They genuinely want to do better, and they genuinely want to change. Genuinely want to change the company. But I feel
like these conversations only occur when you have more people who look like us on the seat. I know how like people are like, oh, I don't want to sit at the table, I'm just gonna make my own table. Really and truly, you want to have a seat at the table. That's the only way you're gonna actually have change and enact what you feel as though would be better for society. That's just why
I think. But the thing about that is, I think it's so hard because some people brought on this planet and they are social justice warriors. That's why I like to call people who strive for change in all places, not just racism. But there's just some people who are not made to be social justice warriors.
Yes, there are. But like, it's more of a sense
like, for example, out of the two of us, you would be a social justice warrior.
Because I know if I ever got onto like a big board of like any company, I'd be like looking out for people who look like me.
Yeah, you just do it naturally, and it's people of color. Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
I feel like a lot of people of colour feel as though that they don't. That I work. There are some people who feel as though they worked so hard that they're not going to help someone else.
Yeah, so it's also about struggle Olympics. I feel like they want you to struggle
as much. Exactly, but like really and truly, like white people have been doing I'm going to give my best friend's son a job for ages. So why can't we do it?
Now, we're a bit off topic. So let me bring us back to cultural appropriation and authentication. But I went to the African fashion exhibition at the V&A and I saw some beautiful, beautiful items. Like, not that I never thought that African fashion can be beautiful, but like a lot of it was like, as I was saying, it was like that hybridization. Like, it was like a mixture between traditional clothing and Western clothing. And I just thought, why are these not on the Met Gala? Like, you see some of these things on the Met Gala, I'm like, it's not giving. And I was like, this could, like, especially men, they don't give at the Met Gala. And I'm like,
yeah, but it's the question is, do you want a white guy wearing traditional African clothing? Especially if he's not from Africa.
This is what I was going to say. Is there a space for traditional clothing on runways to highlight Asian and African designers? Because, for example, let's say you're Nigerian. You want to show off your traditional clothing. You want it on the runway. Maybe you're working... I know that designers go and work for Gucci and stuff, and you work under, like, one designer, like, I don't know, the head. But are you really just going to not show your culture off because it's like Gucci? I feel like with the big houses it's different, but let's say like you've got a lot of these independent designers and they're doing runways. Are you just not going to show off your culture? Because
no, I don't think it's not that you're not going to show off your culture, it's just that you'll choose, because really truly things like the Met Gala, it's like you get approached by designers to wear your stuff. I feel like you have to still be selective of who is wearing your stuff. Right. Like, I'm not going to go to, I don't know, Justin Timberlake to wear some kente. I'm going to go to bloody Zendaya. So you think
there's a space for it on the runways, but the issue is with trickle down, which is like what the runways show, you get in the shops.
Yes.
It can't trickle down.
I'm not saying it can't trickle down. I feel like in order for it to trickle down to everyone, culturally, like, we need, like, in general, society has to be more accepting of us. I feel like they can't wear my stuff or our stuff until they appreciate us as people. They still don't appreciate us as people.
This is true.
So, like, I don't think...
And sad is to think, because I just saw these things, like, and I saw some of the jewelry. I'm like, this is gorgeous.
Jewelry's different. I feel like jewelry is, like, a whole different thing.
Everyone
can wear jewelry, but I feel like it's more, like, because jewelry is not as identifiable as...
True, then.
As clothing.
Like kente cloth.
Yeah. So I feel as though, like...
Because this extends to not just Africa, but also to Asia as
well.
well.
The thing is, right, white people aren't appropriating like they used to. They're not.
They're not eating.
Not eating anymore.
I think we
need to go back to the Gwen Stefani and the Miley Cyrus.
But this is what I was saying. I was like, a lot of what is trending now is literally 90s, early 2000s, which was pioneered by black people. Like,
of course.
Black musicians.
And then white people started wearing the stuff as well.
You know, they
told Destiny Child they looked too ghetto.
Yeah, literally, in my research, they told Destiny Child they look ghetto, and then
they wouldn't style them.
6 months later, everyone's wearing what Destiny Child was wearing, literally. But what I was gonna say is, now it feels like we've done 90s fashion. We're now in the 10-year cycle. We're doing it again. What's next for fashion? I was thinking after going to this exhibition that like African and Asian clothing, because obviously globalization isn't what's next. That's where the ideas are. You know, these fashion houses are, you look at the runway, it's the same thing. There's nothing new in fashion, really. And I feel like now with social media, you can comment more. Before, like, it was really exclusive. I feel like fashion was exclusive, but it's not as exclusive anymore.
It's not.
What's next for fashion? Is this the way? But can we do it without appropriate cultural clothing?
I don't think it's cultural clothing. That's the next. You don't think cultural clothing will be probably like in the next 50, if we're still here, 50 to like 60 here. I feel like right now,
straight like dead, like it's not like you're not going to the African OTs and saying we're wearing this.
No, but I feel like nowadays the new fad will probably be technological stuff in clothing.
Oh, so okay. So you don't think
it won't be cultural? Cultural will have to come down later down the line when like society's more. I feel like when society's more like culturally mixed and more.
So basically you're saying like Scythe. If you haven't read Scythe, go read it because you read. But in Scythe, basically, no one is one race. There's not
that no one's no race. Most of like society is like very multicultural. With like
you basically identify with metrics of percentages what you are, because everyone is so mixed by then. Because
exactly.
It's like the year 3. I don't know what the year, but let's say 3000.
Yeah.
Like Futurama is.
It's proper like futuristic.
I feel like
then, yes, I can see like
cultural
clothing, like when like society in itself is more like
mixed.
Oh, okay. But like not now. I feel like we still have very, very strict racial lines, very strict ethnic lines.
What you're saying is we're not gonna be stuck in the trend cycle because what's coming back is 2010s. Tumblr era, that's on its way back.
Please. Take us away from the shackles.
What's next? That's why I thought maybe what's next is, I think what will be first is having Asian and I don't even have the specifics for this, but I think who was it? It wasn't Gucci. Who is it? Louis Vuitton. Someone did a show in Asia, and you remember? Oh, you probably not have seen this, but that guy, that Jack Wright. He's basically said, "Oh, it looks like the Hunger Games in here, the capital," but it was just like Asian clothing. And everyone was like, "Are you seriously?"
Who's Jack Wright?
This white boy who was in the Hype House on TikTok. You'll know when you see him. He's blonde. You know Sienna May.
Oh,
that was it. Oh, that him. He basically said, "Oh, it looks like the Hunger Games, capital citizens in here."
Oh,
because he's never been around. He was like, "Oh, it looks so futuristic, looks so different."
No,
everyone's like, "You're calling my traditional clothing futuristic. Hunger Games wear," and I was like. So this is what I say when you say, okay, maybe it's not the next big thing. Because these people, like, they've never seen anyone in that.
I feel like it's going to be very, like, technologically, like, things in, like...
Yeah, I saw something saying that next clothing's, like, dystopian.
Yeah, dystopian. I feel like dystopian's coming back.
Yeah.
Hopefully I get my political economics or science fiction module next year. But, yeah.
Yeah, dystopian's...
Dystopian's definitely
coming back.
Harry Potter is...
Let's go.
No, let's forget the reboot. Dystopians are coming back. They're bringing back dystopians. Yeah. They're even dropping a dystopian movie. They're adapting sci-fi. Pray for us because they're not doing that correctly.
Okay, so what are your hopes and your dreams for diversity in fashion? Specifically, if not in general. I feel like for me, let me go first. In fashion, I think it's just what will naturally happen is, nepotism will always be rife everywhere.
It's Britain.
So our generation, Gen Z, what it's gonna be is when we go in, we're gonna make it all
transparent,
diverse and and whatever. And that means the next generation, they're gonna struggle less, and they might see me and be like, "Oh, hey, I'm a little someone trying to get my foot in the door. Can you help me?" And I'm gonna be like, "Yeah," and it will get diverse that way. So my hope is just behind the scenes, because when behind the scenes change, even though I think models is changed, because I remember I worked at a fashion show, and it was very diverse, and
I feel like the
everyone
modeling part. I think it's easier to become like a ethnic model now.
Models is getting diverse. I think behind the scenes,
that's where it's still white. I feel like it's everywhere behind the scenes.
In front of the cameras, when you look everywhere, it's gonna feel more authentic, I think.
Yeah.
I think my dreams, I think I'm always hopeful. I think 10 years. You ask my teacher, she was like, when I was younger, I thought racism would be gone by your time, and it's still here. So don't be as hopeful as you are. We had a conversation at 9 a.m. telling me don't be hopeful for the future because racism is still rife. And I thought, wow. She goes, maybe when you die. And I was like...
Man said maybe when you die.
I was like, Jesus. I was like, okay, yes. And then, but yeah, I'm hopeful. I think the initiatives are still new because they all came up once
2020.
George Floyd died. So they're 3 years old. If they haven't been started, they will start soon, I think.
Yeah.
Because this report came out, I think, last year. So, I'm hopeful. But there's not much to say. This topic, it's like, it will only get better if people talk about it, which is why I'm doing this podcast to talk about topics like this. You have to keep it on the front of people's mind. This is an unbalanced society. Things are never going to be balanced until you rub out the old ways.
Basically.
And the old ways are still the new ways.
Exactly. I mean, I'm
She's not hopeful. She's a realist.
I'm a realist.
So she's thinking in 30 years. But you can't think like that.
I feel like...
I think that affects you internally a bit.
They say ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss.
But I unfortunately have enlightened myself to the point where I am so...
critical thinkers, her more than me.
I am very much stressed all the time. But I think, like, in general, I just hope, like, our generation makes industries, or at least the creative industries, more transparent, easier to, like, get your foot in the door. I just think...
I think... I just wanted to get to the point where you don't have to think about, okay, is it because
I'm black,
or is it because I'm... You just think, is that a factor? You want it to be, was it because my presentation was rubbish? Obviously, it can still be like that now. Your presentation might be shit. Maybe you are a shit candidate. Maybe that person...
Maybe you haven't worked as hard as you thought you did.
Yeah, maybe it's that. But
the fact that
more than not, it's the other.
It is.
More than not, it's because they're hiring the CEO's friend's daughter. Who, maybe she did work hard, but maybe she hasn't worked a day in her life.
Exactly.
It's too many what ifs. I want to get away from that. I want to get...
Yeah, I feel like...
before it was like, it's definitely because I'm black. Now it's like, maybe.
And hopefully it'll be like, maybe it's not because I'm black.
In the future, I want it to be, maybe it's because I was shit. That is what we're aiming towards. Maybe I'm a bad candidate.
Walk away from the black excellency and embrace black democracy.
Yeah, I think...
We're allowed to be mediocre in our life.
I think with diversity and inclusivity, obviously it's not just racism. We want to be... you want to be, let's say you're from a working class background, you don't want to be stunted, your growth stunted just because you need to go work, you can't work. For example, this is going to be talked about in a different issue, but you can't intern for free because you've got to make money.
Exactly.
Because you've got to support yourself. You don't have a rich family to help you.
And I love these, one thing about the creative industries that I don't like is that they expect you to come in and like legit do what someone's doing. Like actually like basically doing a whole job but not pay for it because it's work experience.
Like when I went to the stylist I was working with, she told me she interned for free for 5 years.
For 5 years.
That I was like, are you serious? I was like, what? And she goes,
and like it's not even like, I was an actual job. It was.
She said they passed her around like you can't work for free for more than 6 weeks. So when people would notice she was there for a while, they would just go to another department and be like, does anyone need an intern? And just pass her around.
That is so terrible.
And I was like, do I really want to go into this industry? But she's like, it's better now.
It's better now.
She was like, it's better now.
I feel like
she was quite young. I think she was 28 or she turned 29.
I feel like this day and age, Gen Z wouldn't do that.
So you got high hopes on low hopes?
Yes.
High hopes?
Medium hopes.
Okay, everyone, thank you for listening. Yeah, have a great day, everyone.
Enjoy it.